Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig through the latest research to pull out the insights that, well, really matter. Today, we're jumping into a really critical area of cancer treatment. We've seen these incredible breakthroughs saving so many lives, but sometimes the more powerful the treatment, the more challenges can pop up alongside it. And our focus today is on a real powerhouse in chemotherapy, cisplatin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely essential drug.
Right. It's used for so many cancers, lung, stomach, bladder. I mean, the list goes on. It works incredibly well. But it does come with this well-known but maybe kind of insidious side effect. It can cause lasting kidney damage, what we call chronic kidney disease, or CKD. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission here is to explore how some really cutting-edge research, like just published stuff August 2025 in journals like JAMA Oncology and Clinical Kidney Journal, is giving us these powerful new tools to both predict who might get this damage and also how we might prevent it.
And this is just such a fundamentally important area. I mean, think about it. A patient's body is already under enormous stress, right? Fighting the cancer itself. So adding a long-term burden like chronic kidney disease, it can just dramatically impact their quality of life and their ability to handle maybe other treatments down the line and just their overall health as a survivor. So understanding these risks and, actively trying to mitigate them, it's not just about managing a side effect. It's really about safeguarding their whole future well-being.
Absolutely. That's really well put. So let's tackle the first part of that, predicting, who's most likely to develop DKD after getting cisplatin. And this comes from a really fascinating population-based study. Grant and colleagues did this one, just so we're all on the same page. When we talk about CKD here, we mean an estimated glomerular filtration rate. That's eGFR falling below 60. 60 LMN, 1.73 meters rad.
Right.
And that eGFR number, that's basically our main way of measuring how well your kidneys are doing their job filtering your blood.
Exactly. The eGFR, it's calculated from simple blood tests. Looks at creatinine levels, age, sex, things like that. And it basically tells us, how efficiently your kidneys are clearing out waste products. When that number consistently drops below 60, it signals, impaired function.
Right.
And that can lead over time to a whole cascade of other health problems. So yeah, monitoring that number, it's really vital.
And the study's findings were, pretty stark, actually. They looked at over 9,000 patients who started treatment without having CKD already.
Okay.
And a significant chunk, 13.6%, that's over 1,200 people, still ended up developing CKD after getting cisplatin.
Wow. That's quite a few.
It is. And across the whole group they studied, which was over 9,500 patients, the average drop in eGFR was about 8.1 mmol/min, 1.73 meters function. Which, sounds like a number, but it's a measurable, meaningful decline in kidney function for sure. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, a bit surprising. The study found that a remarkably simple model, like just a standard statistical regression thing based only on the patient's kidney function before treatment, their baseline eGFR.
Just that one thing.
Just that one thing. It was incredibly effective at predicting who would develop CKD later. This simple model got an AUROC that's area under the curve of 0.80.
Wow, that's pretty good prediction.
It's really good. 1 is perfect, 0.5 is just guessing. So 0.80 from one single simple measurement. That's powerful. And get this is the kicker. Even sophisticated machine learning systems.
The AI approaches.
Right, the ones that crunch tons of other data demographics, cancer type, cisplatin dose, other health issues, labs, even how patients felt.
All the bells and whistles.
Exactly. They failed to improve the prediction accuracy over that simple, single variable model. Doesn't that kind of turn things on their head? What's your take on that as an expert?
It's genuinely striking, really. We often have this default assumption, right, that more data, more complex algorithms, that always equals better predictions.
Yeah, makes sense.
But this finding, it really forces a pause, a reconsideration. It suggests that for this specific outcome, this chronic kidney disease after cisplatin, the baseline kidney function isn't just a factor. It seems to be the dominant predictor. Overwhelmingly so.
Wow.
It actually simplifies things clinically, in a way. It tells us that sometimes the most powerful insights really do come from the most fundamental, easily accessible data. Your starting point matters most, it seems.
It's almost like, expecting some super complex weather model to predict if you'll get wet walking outside. And it turns out the best predictor was just, is it raining right now?
Yeah, something like that. Sometimes Occam's razor applies, even in complex medicine.
So, okay, what does this mean for you, listening, if you're a patient or a caregiver? Well, it has potentially huge implications for informed consent. Patients and doctors can now have much more specific conversations about someone's individual risk of developing CKD before starting cisplatin. And that deeper understanding, well, can guide decisions. Maybe you implement proactive preventive steps tailored to that person. Or maybe, in some cases, you even talk about alternative treatments if the predicted risk seems really high.
And just to build on that, it's really important we make the distinction here between acute kidney injury, AKI, and chronic kidney disease, the CKD we've been focusing on.
Good point.
Cisplatin can definitely cause AKI, which is often temporary. Kidney function might dip, then recover. But CKD, that's the longer-term, potentially permanent damage that has much bigger implications for, long-term cancer survivorship, future heart and kidney risks, all of that.
Right.
And the study actually noted that most patients who did get that temporary AKI didn't actually go on to develop the chronic CKD.
Ah, okay.
So this simple baseline EGFR predictor, it seems to be specifically flagging the risk for that more lasting serious problem, which is really valuable.
Okay, so prediction is one piece. A surprisingly simple piece, it turns out. But what can we actually do to prevent the damage in the first place? And here there's some really promising news about using intravenous magnesium for magnesium. This comes from a big multi-center study, Gupta and colleagues, and there was also a related commentary by Nardelli et al. Because, predicting risk is great, but actively stopping the complication, even better.
Oh, absolutely. Prevention is always the goal, if possible. And the way magnesium seems to work here is actually, well, pretty clever. Think of it like this. Magnesium seems to help the kidney cell's own sort of cleanup mechanisms work better.
Okay.
It essentially encourages the cells, particularly in the proximal tubules, to pump out the platinum component from the cisplatin more efficiently.
Ah, okay, so it helps get rid of the toxic part faster.
Exactly. It helps restore these efflux transporters. Think of them like little pumps that push the platinum out into the urine, reducing how much builds up inside the kidney cells where it causes damage.
Gotcha.
And conversely, if someone's magnesium levels are low, it seems that platinum might hang around longer inside the cells, potentially leading to more injury and inflammation.
That makes a lot of sense, mechanistically. And the results from that big study by Gupta, they were really compelling. They looked at over 13,700 adult patients. This was across 5 major U.S. cancer centers, so pretty robust data.
Yeah, that's a large cohort.
And they found that giving IV magnesium prophylactically, meaning before or during the cisplatin infusion to prevent problems, was associated with a 20% lower odds of developing that acute kidney injury, CPAKI, or even death.
20% lower odds. That's significant.
It really is. The adjusted odds ratio was 0.80, and importantly, the typical dose of IV magnesium they used wasn't huge, just 2 grams on average. And maybe even more importantly, the safety profile looked really good.
That's key.
Yeah, the study showed IV magnesium was well tolerated. No increase in side effects or adverse events reported.
Which is great news because magnesium is, readily available, generally safe when monitored properly.
Exactly. It's not some experimental high-risk thing.
And digging a bit deeper into that study, there was another fascinating layer. They found that certain groups seemed to get more benefit from the IV magnesium than others.
Oh, interesting. Like who?
Well, the protective effect seems stronger in patients who were under 65, also in women. And interestingly, in those who started with a higher baseline EGFR, so better kidney function to begin with, like 90 or above.
Huh. You might almost expect the opposite.
You might. And perhaps even more intriguing, it also seemed more protective in patients who already had slightly higher baseline magnesium levels in their blood, sort of in the upper end of the normal range, like 2.0 to 2.2 milligdl.
Wow. Okay, so those details are really important, right?
Absolutely. Because these kinds of nuanced findings, they can really help us move towards more personalized preventive strategies. Maybe we target magnesium supplementation more aggressively in certain groups or monitor levels more closely.
It's amazing how those details can refine the approach. But despite all this encouraging data, it sounds like giving IV magnesium with cisplatin isn't quite standard practice everywhere yet.
That's generally true. It's not uniformly adopted. And part of the hesitation comes from the fact that this evidence, while strong, is mostly retrospective and observational.
Meaning they looked back at data that already existed rather than setting up a forward-looking experiment.
Exactly. We're seeing an association giving magnesium is linked to better outcomes. But observational studies can sometimes have hidden biases or confounding factors, things we didn't account for. They can't prove cause and effect with the same certainty as a randomized trial.
Right. So that kind of raises the big question, doesn't it? What's next?
It really does. This raises an important point. The next logical step, and what the researchers are calling for, is more definitive research. Specifically, we really need well-designed, prospective, randomized clinical trials.
The gold standard.
The gold standard. To really confirm these findings. To nail down the optimal dosing, should it be weight-based? Should we adjust it based on baseline magnesium levels, especially for those starting low? And also to look at longer-term benefits, like preventing CKD, not just AKI, and see how effective it is in those highest-risk patients identified by, say, their baseline eGFR.
Got it. So moving from this looks promising to this is absolutely what we should be doing, and here's exactly how.
Precisely. It's about building that final level of evidence to really change practice confidently and universally.
Still, it feels like a potential game changer, doesn't it? That something so simple, safe, inexpensive, readily available like IV magnesium shows this much promise for cutting down on serious complications from a vital cancer treatment.
It's incredibly encouraging. It really is.
Okay, so let's just quickly bring this all together. This deep dive, it's really given us two, I think, incredibly important takeaways for protecting kidneys during cancer treatment, specifically with cisplatin. First, that surprising power of just looking at the baseline eGFR. How well the kidneys work before treatment starts seems to be the best predictor we have right now for long-term chronic kidney disease risks.
Simple but powerful.
Simple but powerful. It tells us that maybe we don't always need the most complex tech. Sometimes the basic measurements hold the key. And second, we've got this really compelling evidence pointing towards prophylactic 5E magnesium as a potentially safe and effective way to help prevent that acute kidney injury.
A very promising preventive strategy, yeah.
So, for you listening, whether you're a patient going through this or a family member supporting someone or a healthcare provider on the front lines, what's the practical value? Well, this knowledge really empowers better, more informed conversations. It allows for discussions about individual risk, about potential preventive steps, and hopefully, it contributes to these ongoing shifts in clinical practice that really put kidney health front and center, both for the short term and the long haul after cancer.
Absolutely. And I think these studies taken together, they really showcase that whole journey of scientific discovery, don't they? They're a great reminder that sometimes the biggest leaps forward, the most impactful solutions, they aren't necessarily the most high-tech or complex ones.
Right.
Sometimes they come from just leveraging a really fundamental understanding of physiology, combined with simple, accessible interventions that maybe were overlooked or understudied. It's about being rigorous, being observant, and, being open to what the data actually tells us, even if it kind of challenges our assumptions about complexity.
That's a perfect way to frame it. And it leaves us with a thought to maybe mull over. Considering just how vital kidney health is for overall well-being, especially for cancer survivors dealing with the long-term effects of treatment, what other simple, maybe overlooked interventions like magnesium might just be waiting out there, waiting to be rigorously studied and potentially implemented to really improve patient outcomes? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.